All right, hello and welcome back in, you guys. We got One Piece chapter 1146 here with us today. My name is Sai, and we are here to break down this chapter and have a nice little discussion about it. So before we kick things off, I just gotta say, but with this chapter, there is nothing more that I could have asked for in regards to what we got out of the God Knights. Dude, I'm a simple guy, right? I like villains, I like it when they perform well, and perform well they did. So, to kick things off, we are going to tackle this chapter in chronological order, so we got to talk about that cover page story. And surprise, surprise, Ulti and page 1 are very grateful that Yamato saved them. Not super crazy, right? We all kind of saw this coming. The minute we saw page 1 and Ulti, we knew exactly where this was going, right? Odin had his scabbards, so that must mean that Yamato, somebody who wants to repeat Odin's journey, should get her own scabbards somewhere along the way. At first, we thought those kids that were messing with Yamato were going to be her scabbards. No, they kind of just left after a chapter or two. But here we have it. We have actual heavy hitters that want to join Yamato. The thing is that I think Yamato might say no to Ulti, because Ulti's begging Yamato to let them serve her. And if you recall, during Odin's journey, he turned down a good handful of his scabbards. But guess what they did? They stuck around anyways. So even if Yamato says no, I don't think she'll be able to get rid of Ulti in page 1 that easily. Especially when you think about it in terms of the fact that they have nowhere to go. Right? Like, they're in Wano. They're still technically in enemy territory. If they don't start making friends right now, they're just gonna get kicked out of the country anyways. So, yeah, I could totally see them hanging around Yamato regardless of Yamato's consent. And now I'm just kind of wondering if we will get more scabbards, right? Because Odin had 9. Ulti and page 1 together are only 2. So where are we gonna get the other 7? I guess Yamato doesn't need all 9 scabbards to repeat Odin's journey, but there are still a couple of candidates that could be on the island. I mean, we know Jack the Drought is somewhere here. We know Black Maria, even Sasaki should be on the island as well. Hell, maybe we even recruit Who's Who. Because, hey, Odin recruited Ashura Doji, and Ashura Doji was the leader of a gang. You know, he was over here kidnapping people, you know, terrorizing villages, and he became a good guy. So who's to say that Who's Who doesn't join Yamato too? I guess the only problem would be, of course, Ulti in page 1. I doubt they really like him right now. But yeah, I feel like that is going to be the main theme of Yamato's cover page journey moving onwards, and I really enjoy it. Out of all 31 cover pages we've spent with Yamato thus far, this one in particular ranks pretty high on my list. Not like there's a lot of contenders, mind you. So now that we have freed them, now that we've defeated Who's Who and regained Yasui's blade, I'm assuming Yamato just continues her journey, which is pretty crazy to think about because we're still only in Udon. Like, we're just a little bit over halfway through this journey. Like, there's still a lot more to go. So, yeah, I'm excited to see who we run into next. If I had to put my money down, if I had to make a wish on a star, I kind of hope we see Sasaki. I know not a lot of people liked him, but I thought he was kind of cool, right? He's like a triceratops that can fly in the sky. I mean, who doesn't like that goober? And then, of course, when Kyoshiro Denjiro betrayed him, he was very sad, and I felt bad for him during Onigashima. But moving onwards, we got the first page of the chapter, and we start things off right where we left him off last week. We got Gunko confronting the Colin Pirates. Yes, that is right. Gunko is on the ship, and she is faced off against Usopp, Jinbei, Nami, Brooke, and Colin. And they immediately deduce that she is one of the intruders on the island. And what's interesting is that they call her a human intruder, and she corrects them, and she's like, whoa, 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 human? Hold your tongue. I am a god. And this is where we get a really spicy name drop. But Usopp is like, wait, a god? You mean like the Celestial Dragons and Enel? You're speaking just like them. And brother, I think this is the first time we've heard of Enel since Skypiea? Like, nobody's ever brought up Enel since Skypiea, but here we are. Usopp's like, hey, like, this is an Enel thing. She's talking like Enel. And of course, that doesn't mean Enel is going to be in this arc or he's going to be reintroduced. But what that tells me, and all I care about, is the fact that this means that Oda did not forget about our guy. You know, somehow, some way, I think he will edge his way into the story. I mean, we saw the mirror, we saw the lightning bolt, we saw something that kind of looked like the Arc Maxim, but yeah, it was just nice to see Enel here. So what's interesting about
Gunko
is that she kind of yaps. You know, like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but Gunkko really talks in this chapter. It kind of reminds me, you know, going back to Onigashima again, it reminds me of Jinbei versus Who's Who, where throughout their entire fight, Who's Who is just spilling the beans about Sun God Nika, about the Gumu Gumo no Mi and Shanks. It's like one of those situations where Gunkko's like talking and talking and talking, and the Straw Hats in the meanwhile are just trying to fight her. So because of the flow of this chapter, we will go back and forth between what Gunkko is talking about and how the Straw Hats are fighting her. So first things first, they talk about the kids. They're like, oh, you guys are the ones kidnapping the kids, right? And Gunkko's like, yep, that is us. You know, abducting giant children are pretty hard, so we have to walk them to a ship. But when they get on that ship, we will send them off to the Holy Land, Marie Joie. And I thought that was kind of interesting because, you know, if I had to put my money down somewhere, if I had to take a guess, I have a bit more of a pessimistic outlook on this, and I think the God Knights actually might be successful when it comes to kidnapping the giant children. So the fact that Gunkko is talking about where they're sending them to, I think is going to play some relevancy later. Like, maybe they kidnap the kids, right? They're successful, and then they're like, oh, we know where the kids are going. Gunkko said they're going to Marie Joie, so let's go get those kids. It's kind of like Eni's Lobby, where back on Water 7, Rob Lucci and the gang were like, yep, Nico Robin here, she's going to be executed and judged at Eni's Lobby, right? So it kind of seems like they're setting up the next place, like the next place we have to go to. So while Gunkko is talking about her child abduction plans, we cut in and we see Frankie, Ripley, Bonnie, and Lilith, and they have just defeated the Thunder Nightmare Monster. Well, I listed all of them, but it looks like Frankie did all the heavy lifting because you see that he just recently fired off one of his radical beams, which makes sense, right? These monsters aren't exactly the toughest things in the world, so I'm glad Frankie did it all by himself. So now I'm just kind of wondering where they're going, because if you look at the panel, Ripley's actually running away, even though the cloud has been defeated, so they are heading somewhere. It doesn't look like they're heading towards the building, at least not from this POV. Maybe they are because you still see the spores and the mushrooms popping up on the side, and we first saw those with the ancient robot building, but who knows? I would love if they actually started taking proactive measures when it comes to defeating the God Knights, because I'm gonna be honest, we need Frankie and Ripley here ASAP. I mean, hell, Ripley's kid is in danger, and as far as the Straw Hats go, I mean, spoiler alert, but they kind of get cooked in this chapter, so I would prefer if Frankie showed up and fought one of the God Knights, or at least try to stall them out, right? So one idea that I'm kind of playing around with right now is whether or not the God Knights would be interested in kidnapping Bonnie. Because like I said, we get the whole Gunkko child abduction speech, and that is when we cut away to Frankie's group. But within Frankie's group is Bonnie. So it got me thinking, like, would they want to take Bonnie if they could? Because she is a child. You know, she wouldn't be that much of a hassle. They're already kidnapping giant children, so why not a human-sized one? So I thought about it a little bit, and while Bonnie wouldn't give the God Knights any leverage in terms of subjugating Elbaph, I do think it would be a nice +1 to kidnap her, because we have to remember that her dad does exist out there somewhere. Her dad is a celestial dragon. Whether it's Shamrock, a Garland, or just another family in general, they are out there. So it wouldn't be a net negative to kidnap Bonnie if they had the chance. So Frankie's group going towards the God Knights, that might actually be a bad thing unless they drop Bonnie and Lilith off somewhere safe. And yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, how do you guys feel about that? Do you think they will kidnap Bonnie, or no? Do you think Bonnie has just suffered enough already? So we cut back over to the Column Pirates, and they finally made the distinctive connection that Gunkko is indeed a celestial dragon. Usopp laments by saying, oh wait, she doesn't look anything like the celestial dragons we met before. And that is when Brooke chimes in, and he says, I think she's even higher up than that. Maybe she is a part of the God Knights. And I'm like, wait a damn minute. Brooke, how do you know about the God Knights? Which, here's the thing. The world of One Piece is interesting because we don't know much about it. We don't know who actually knows about the Gorsei, about the God Knights, the inner working of Marie Joie, and characters could just know things without being directly connected to it, right? Like a good example, back on Egghead Island, Saint Saturn. We didn't know if common people knew about Saint Saturn and the Gorsei, right? Like, are they a hidden secret? Do you have to learn about them somewhere? And one of the Marines just said, oh, like, Saint Saturn, he looks a little bit different from the pictures I have. So it's like, wait a minute, like, they just have pictures of Saint Saturn hanging around Marine ships? Like, what is going on here? So I wonder if this is just common knowledge to know about the God Knights, or if Brooke has some connection to them, or maybe he knew about them from his previous life. Because we gotta remember, Brooke, he was born damn near 90 years ago. Brooke also has a mysterious backstory well before he joined the Yorkie Pirates, or the Rumbar Pirates. I call it the Yorkie Pirates because Captain Yorkie is the captain, but it's the Rumbar Pirates. You guys get what I mean. But yeah, Brooke, he is a character riddled with mysteries. So if we come to learn that Brooke ran into the God Knights in the past, or if maybe the kingdom he worked for at the time worked with the world government, I think that'd be pretty awesome, and it wouldn't be super shocking. Brooke is just one of those characters that is, he's a blank slate. Like, Oda can throw a lot of things his way and just make it stick because he is so old, because he hasn't told us everything about his life yet. And also, speaking of Brooke, I do think it's really fascinating that Oda doesn't give us any gags between Brooke and Gunko. There's no, hey, let me see your panties. There's no, oh, you're the Soul King, I'm your biggest fan. Like, no, none of that. Gunkko is straight business in this chapter. I mean, if you guys have been following me for a while now, if you've seen my previous chapter reviews, you know that I thought that Brooke was gonna fangirl out when she saw Brooke. That did not happen. And here's the thing. It feels so good to be wrong. I'll admit it. I love that did not happen, because now we get unfettered God Knight action because of it. If Gunko was fangirling, maybe she wouldn't have gone all out. Maybe Gunko wouldn't have even fought. But no, Gunko doesn't even pay Brooke a passing thought. And it makes me wonder, does Gunko know that Brooke is Soul King Brooke, the musician that she loves? Or does she know and she just simply not care? Or maybe she just doesn't know what Soul King Brooke even looks like. I don't know yet, but I doubt that Oda introduced Gunko being a fan of his song New World is going to be thrown away right here, right? I think there is still going to be some relevance to that later on. Maybe Brooke just has to whip out his guitar or violin and then she'll make that connection and realize, but I'm not too sure. This really caught me by surprise. Like I said, it felt like Oda was building up a Gunko and Brooke special interaction, but that didn't happen here. It didn't happen at all. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. And like I said, I am happy that is the case because one, it caught me off guard. And two, Gunko showed off. You know, she showed off because of it. You know, she didn't hold back. She didn't pull any punches and she didn't become a gag character. I think it kind of would have sucked if the first God Knight we really fought ended up being a gag. So yeah, I think this is awesome. So we go down a little bit more and, you know, Usopp and the gang, they do not like the thought that Gunko wants to turn kids into hostages and slaves. Nami, especially so, takes action here. And she whips out Zeus and she uses a brand new attack, an attack that I absolutely love. But she turns Zeus into a freaking shark. Why? Why a shark? I have no idea. I thought it was a little bit odd, but hey, I'm all about it. I love shark. Who doesn't love a good shark? So she uses Thunder Shark Tempo and it's about to land on Gunko. But that is when Gunko whips out an arrow and shoots it right back at Nami. Yes, these arrows are freaking versatile. And we gotta keep in mind, like I said, while Gunko is fighting, while Gunko is, you know, redirecting attacks and knocking the Straw Hats silly, she's yapping, dude. She's talking. She's having a speech still. While she's sending Nami Shark back, she says, yeah, one day the world was going to simply disappear. That was what was supposed to happen. But some pesky people figured out the truth. Some pesky humans. And they made it known to the world. And that is when we see Vegapunk, Olvia, and Professor Clover. And I will admit, this is where I got kind of confused, and I would love for you guys to chime in as well. And also, I mean, pretty much with the whole chapter, right? But when it comes to this part, I get the Vegapunk portion. Vegapunk figured out that the WG is actively destroying the world by rising the waters and destroying islands. He broadcasted it. So yeah, Vegapunk fits this criteria. He fits Gunko's speech here. But as far as Olvia and Clover goes, I'm not too sure if they qualify, which might sound absurd, but hear me out, right? So Clover and Olvia, they knew about the ancient kingdom name. They read one of the poneglyphs, possibly more. We haven't seen more, but they read at least the one on Ohara. But they didn't say anything about the world ending. So do they fit this list? I'm not too sure. And then as far as making it known to the world, I mean, Olvia and Clover were also unsuccessful. I mean, Clover didn't broadcast anything. He only talking to the Gorosei, and then he died shortly afterwards. And then Olvia, she's kind of the same case. She simply died on Ohara. So did they know that the world was ending, and did they actually make it known to the world? Not necessarily. I mean, maybe they did. Maybe they're counting the books of Ohara being present here at Elbaph. I think that'd be pretty cool. But she doesn't say anything about it. I mean, maybe the Olvia and Clover influence will be felt later on. I think that'd be awesome as well. But yeah, I thought there were interesting inclusions here, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think Olvia and Clover knew that the world was ending and they simply didn't have a chance to say it yet? Yes or no? So moving back over to the fight, we see that Nami has successfully avoided the Zeus redirect by Gunko, and instead Zeus ends up hitting Brooke, which is a nice little callback. So Usopp starts shooting off a skull grass bomb at Gunko, and it successfully lands. Gunko sees that it's coming, but she doesn't dodge it, which I think is really important. It makes it look way cooler, right? If Gunko got caught off guard by this, and then she couldn't dodge it, that'd be kind of lame. But Gunko does see it coming, and she just tanks it instead. We get a crazy skull bomb coming out of that explosion. Gunko is missing pretty much the upper half of her body, but she just ends up regenerating all of it. Yes, that is right. The God Knights have regeneration abilities like the Gorosei. I've seen people saying that this could just still be a power of the arrow no mi. Maybe she's made out of arrows and it's, sending her body backwards in time. There's just an arrow that's pointing backwards or something, but I don't think that's the case. I think this is simply Gorosei, Celestial Dragon, Holy Knight regeneration powers at hand here, which is nuts. But of course, it makes sense. We have seen that Gunko is able to use the magic abyss circles like the Gorosei, so why not have them have regeneration as well? Why not give them all of the Gorosei's powers? Like, it's just a shared thing between all the upper echelon of the Celestial Dragon race. So yeah, I think that was pretty cool. As far as Gunko being a regeneration merchant, I think this is a little bit different, right? In terms of portrayal, I love Gunko's regeneration a lot more than Saturn so far, because going back to Egghead, I hate bringing back Saturn's name up because he's already dead, but Saturn, for example, right? Kuma came to the island, knocked him through buildings, and then he had to regenerate. He couldn't dodge that. And then Sanji and Frankie, when they kicked him and blasted him, Saturn couldn't do anything about that either, right? As far as Gunko goes, she sees the bomb, she tanks it, and then she regenerates knowingly. Saturn was pretty much a non-consensual punching bag, whereas Gunko is a consensual one, if that makes sense, right? Like, if Saturn on Egghead saw Kuma and was like, let me just take that hit, that's different. But no, Saturn was always caught on the back foot. So I think the portrayal of Gunko here and her regeneration so far is a lot better. So as far as this goes though, since they can regenerate, I do wonder how far Oda is going to take this. How many Gorosei powers are the God Knights going to have? And the reason I ask that is because I still wonder if they will have monster transformations. I know, I'm beating a dead horse. The theory should be dead and gone by now, but I gotta ask the question, if they can regenerate like the Gorosei, will they also be able to transform like the Gorosei? I'm not too sure. I feel like that might be too much, right? Because base level, you know, Gunkko has not even shown haki yet, and Gunkko is a menace. Right, just Devil Fruit alone, she is absolutely cracked. So if we add more abilities onto that, would that be too much? I don't know. Personally, I say, hey, why not? You know, these are one of the final villain groups, so let's make them busted. You know, if Oda wants to give them regeneration, monster powers, and haki and everything, I say go for it, right? This is going to be one of the final hurrahs in big fights that the Straw Hats will have. So why not throw everything at them? But that's just my personal opinion. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. What do you think about her regeneration powers? Is this Gorosei related? Is it Devil Fruit related? And also, will they have more Gorosei powers like transformations under their belt? Because the thing about the transformations, and I always have to point this out, but to our knowledge, thus far, the transformations we have seen from the Gorosei are not Devil Fruits. Oda has never stated that they were. They're simple transformations. Even with Shamrock's Cerberus sword, it had no Devil Fruit moniker there. You know, like Oda, he didn't forget that Devil Fruit monikers exist either, because in that same damn page, he announced that Gunko has the Arrow no Mi. So it sticks out like a sore thumb even more. And I just want to pass the question on to you guys. What do you think about all of this? So another thing to bring up is that since the God Knights can regenerate, also I'm assuming they all can. If Gunko can, I'm assuming they all can. But will we be able to defeat them here on Elbaph? In a straight 1v1 brawl, I'm pretty sure Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro could do her in. But if she just keeps on endlessly regenerating and we have no way to hurt her, then that's going to be a problem. So I wonder, will Conqueror's haki be enough to overcome this, or is there going to be another gimmick? And the reason I bring up Conqueror's haki is because that's what everybody seems to go to. Like when I say, hey guys, like how do we get over regeneration? A lot of people say advanced Conqueror's haki. And I personally don't think that's a bad guess. It's just that we haven't seen it in action yet. All we've seen was Joy Boy's haki, and that didn't even necessarily hurt the Gorosei. It just kind of stunned him for a second. So it's still up in the air. I think I would love it if we just had somebody here that just went all out on them so we get a definitive answer. But as far as it goes, you know, on Egghead, Luffy did throw the kit and caboodle at Saturn, and nothing really worked. I mean, Gear 5th Luffy, I mean, he's laden with haki. Like, every punch Luffy does in Gear 5th, my god, it's coated in haki, right? You see the lightning coming out and everything, and Saturn was more or less fine. I mean, Dorian Brogy chopped Jupiter in half, and he was fine. Venus got blown up by Atlas, and he was also fine. So, how do we get around this? I think that is going to be a genuine question. And if there was one character that could get around this ability, I do want to place my money on Scopper. Scopper, we gotta remember, he was at God Valley. We saw him right beside Roger and Rayleigh. And we can't forget that at God Valley were the God Knights and Saint Saturn. So I think he should have first-hand information when it comes to how to wound these guys. And even if Scopper, back at God Valley, did not fight a God Knight, he was still there. He probably heard Roger fighting them. He probably saw Roger fighting them. So yeah, I want to place my money on him. Hopefully he shows up soon, and he shows us how it's done. Kind of like in Sabaody. I love this parallel, but in Sabaody, the Straw Hats did not know how to fight Kizaru. Kizaru was a menace. Kizaru, at that point in time, was the scariest Logia we have faced off against. Because Crocodile, we knew his weakness. Enel, we knew his weakness. For Kizaru, there's not really a weakness associated with light that we could just use at a moment's notice, right? The guy's a freaking light man. We can't exactly turn up the lights and he gets damaged, right? So we needed Rayleigh to show us how it's done. We needed Rayleigh to show us how to use haki. against the Logia. And yeah, I think this could be a parallel to that, where none of the Straw Hats know how to hurt the God Knights, and that is when Scopper shows up and he actually wounds one of them. I think that'd be beautiful, and it would also show how hyped Scopper really is. I think people already know that he's pretty hype, but if we just add that on to him, right? If we give him that really parallel, I think that'd be kind of sick. And hey, if that does happen, then maybe haki is the answer. Maybe Scopper just knows how to utilize it better than others, or maybe it's a subset of haki. Not like Ryuo, but maybe there's like a third option out there somewhere. I'm not too sure, but yeah, either way, I think haki will be the solution, but not the type of haki we've seen before, if that makes sense. So like I said, Gunko keeps on yapping away during all of this, and she talks about the enormous war that will engulf the entire world. Brother, this is, I think it's the first time we've heard about this war since Marineford. The last character that talked about this was freaking Whitebeard. Bro! Yes, she says that this war is about to begin, and it is imperative to find out who the Giants will ally with. Because the Giants, they're so strong that they will have sway in this war. I mean, they are like a warring race, and they're like 1,000 times bigger than the average human, so it makes sense. Imu, the Gorosei, they want the Giants on their side. So that is why they are kidnapping the kids. That is why they're holding them hostage. She says that she doesn't care about hostages, but these are her orders. And it's like, damn. Damn. This war is on the horizon. It really exists. It's funny because Nami doesn't believe in it. She's like, like a war this size? No way. Like, that's poppycock. But here we go. And this is why I am really interested to see how this hostage situation goes down. Because if the God Knights are successful in kidnapping the kids, what do the Giants do? Because it's a tough one, because like your son or daughter or your next door neighbor's son or daughter, they are kidnapped. You have to work for the WG. You can't exactly oppose them, because if you do, say goodbye to your kids, right? Like, it's tough. And I think it would be really interesting to see what the Giants end up doing if the God Knights are successful here. And yeah, I do want to ask you guys, what do you think the outcome of Elbaph will be? Do you think that the God Knights will be successful and the Giants will have to bend the knee? Or do you think the Straw Hats will save the day and the Giants will simply ally with the Straw Hats? Because that's what they want to do, right? The Giants love the Straw Hats. The Giants love the red-haired pirates even. So they have a lot of reasons, morally, to work with their boys. But, like I said, if your family's kidnapped, your family's kidnapped. You don't really have a choice there. So yeah, I would love to hear your guys' opinions on that. And I guess now, one of my main takeaways is that since the world government are in the stages of recruiting allies, if the Giants don't work out, or even if they do, who else would they want to recruit? They are recruiting fighters. So, are they going to open this offer to other people? Like maybe the Fishmen, which technically the Fishmen should be on their side because King Neptune was at the Reverie and he is a part of the allied WG nations. But we know how the Fishmen feel about all this, right? They will probably just end up siding with the Straw Hats unless the WG has leverage again. I guess they could also open this door to other pirate groups too, which feels weird because they just dismantled the Shishibukai. So it would be odd if they said, hey guys, a war is coming. If you're a pirate and if you want to work with us, come help us. Like, I can't imagine them doing that. But then again, that would open the door for Blackbeard. Right? Blackbeard is playing some, 5D chess mind games over there watching Dragon, watching Marie's Raw. So maybe he does slip in through the cracks and he's like, hey guys, I'll solve your food problems. I'll help you out. I'll help you fight Dragon. Just let me join you. Yeah, I feel like that might be the case, and that could be how the final war is set up. Blackbeard and the God Knights versus the rest of the world, but I'm not too sure yet. I think there are a lot of questions here, and of course, that is even if the WG is willing to accept more allies outside of the Giants. This is just crazy in general, and while Gunko is saying all of this, we see two updates on the side. We see Dory and Brogy continuing their monster hunting endeavors, and we also see that Luffy and Loki are now fattened up because they ate that freaking dinosaur from last chapter. Sadly, though, we are missing a couple of key characters from these two panels. Like in the Dory and Brogy panel, we're missing Scopper, right? Scopper was last shown with them, but now he's no longer there. So in my opinion, that means that Scopper is making a move towards the three voices he heard last chapter, which are the God Knights. And of course, we gotta ask the question, which God Knight is he going to go after first? Gunko, Sommers, or Killingham? And then the other two characters we're missing are Zoro and Sanji. I'm assuming that Zoro and Sanji are just simply not shown and they're right next to Luffy and Loki because, of course, they were also feasting with them in the beginning. But there is a small chance that they are making their way up to the Sun Realm. But for me, at least, if that was the case, I feel like that would be a little bit weird because Luffy and Loki, they would want to join in with them. But yeah, either way, those are the characters we're missing. Just wanted to point them out. And now we go back down to Gunko's fight. And she kind of bodies everybody. You know, she kind of bodies everybody. So she starts off by pointing one of her arrows at Usopp. Usopp is over here trying to, wiggle around it. Nami's trying to yank the arrow, but to no avail. We then get Brooke and Jinbei making comments about this. And Jinbei's like, don't worry, Usopp, leave it to me. And Brooke says, an arrow pointing at where you're gonna go? That's foolish. And then they both go in to save Usopp. They both go in to attack Gunko, and it doesn't work. Jinbei is about to use Fishman Karate. Brooke whips out his little cane sword, and right before they attack Gunko, Gunko sends two arrows which attach to them and end up pointing them at each other. Brooke stabs Jinbei, and Jinbei knocks Brooke's head off. Brother. Yeah, Gunko's arrow no Mi is pretty cracked. I love it. Oda essentially took everything you could possibly do with arrow abilities and gave it to Gunko, which I know sounds obvious, but we have seen a lot of characters in One Piece that have really cool devil fruits conceptually that just do not utilize it the way they could be utilizing it. A prime example, people might hate this, but Kid. Kid, with his magnet fruit, his Jika no Mi, there have been theories out the wazoo, like, Kid has magnet abilities? Oh my god, he's like Magneto. He's gonna be like Pain out of Naruto, pushing and repelling. And then in reality, all Kid does is make metal bulls and monsters. And it's like, okay, that's cool, Kid, but like, what about everything else you should be able to do? Gunko is the personification of everything a Paramecia should be able to do with their given powers. She can do everything. She spawns arrows out of the ground. They stab you, they choke you, they yank you, they pull you and push you in different directions. She can repel, she speeds up, she can make boots out of arrows. Gunko is perfect. And the craziest thing to keep in mind, by the way, is that Gunko is still the only God Knight we have seen truly fight. She is the first God Knight introduced, the first one we've seen fight. And if this is simply an appetizer and a amuse-bouche of what the God Knights have to offer, then my god, this is a fighting force, brother, and I'm all for it. Like I said, I love strong villains because I always gotta say it. But the stronger a villain is, the more they whoop the main characters and others, the more gratifying it will be when we eventually beat them. It feels good to take down a big bad villain. I always bring this up, but Water 7, Enies Lobby. Imagine if those fights were no diffs for the Straw Hats. Sure, it'd be cool for a moment, but it wouldn't really feel well earned. Like Robin, we're coming. One shot Rob Lucci. One shot Kumadori. Fukuro, out of here. It wouldn't feel good. So having Gunko being such a pinnacle force of nature here, I'm all for it, brother. I really am all for it. And also, by the way, like I said, she has not shown any haki yet, by the way. This is all Devil Fruit abilities. I'm assuming she has haki. Like, if base level Vice Admirals have armament and observation haki, I'm expecting advanced armament and observation from Gunko. Just saying it right here. You know, I think it's not too crazy to imagine. But yeah, after Brooke and Jimmy go in, we also see that Colin gets yoinked away. Gunko does not want to beat Colin. She wants to kidnap him because he is a kid. So Colin does get yoinked away and he flies off during all of this. After Brooke and Jimmy get dealt with, the next arrow goes to Nami. Gunko kicks Nami off the ship, no questions asked. Usopp tries to shoot Gunko while she's speeding towards him, but she simply turns the arrow upside down. She avoids the attack. She knees Usopp in the face, and he is also knocked off the ship. All 4 Straw Hats plus Colin are now done. They're gone. It's as simple as that. You see the panel, you see 5 bodies all flying away, and Gunko is the last man or woman standing here. Yeah, Gunko immediately then calls up Killingham, and she says, hey, Killingham, is everything ready? And we see that while all of this was happening, Killingham and Sommers were both fighting battles too. And they both won. And dude, they also, just like Gunko, they also showed off brand new abilities. Killingham is currently in the midst of defeating Principal Kiba. And Killingham says, I need something really hard and full of spikes. And guess what? In the next panel, you see something spiky as hell coming out of the ground, and he slams Kiba's head into the spike. Yeah, this is a dream manifesting man right here. He says it, it comes into reality. My God, that's crazy, right? Because for the kids, for the Salt with Sommers, Killingham had to put them to sleep to bring out those objects. But here, mid-battle, he simply says it and it spawns in. And I feel like this is because it's coming out of his own imagination, so he doesn't have to be asleep. His opponents don't have to be asleep. He simply just, whoops, there it is, something hard and spiky. And yes, he defeats Principal Kiba, and that's one new ability. But now, for the second ability, Ange. Ange is also there as well, and Ange cannot move. And that is when Killingham says, oh, I put your body in sleep mode. What? Sleep mode? They're awake, but they can't move? What the hell? Yeah, they're showing off, man. With as little panels as possible, Oda just gave Killingham 2 brand new abilities. People might argue that the first ability isn't exactly new, but I think it's new because he's able to just bring it out without anybody being asleep. So I consider that new. So Killingham is in front of the Elbaph Mushi, the broadcast snail, and it looks like the God Knights are planning to broadcast something through all of Elbaph. If I had to guess what they're going to say, it's simply going to be, hey, we have your kids. If you want them back, you have to work for us for like the next year. Right? I'm pretty sure that's what it's going to be. Or maybe even, hey, join the world government and we'll give you back the kids right away. Something of that sort. I think they will just end up declaring some negotiation terms. Sommers, though, says, hey, give me a second, Killingham. I'm not ready yet. I'm still dealing with this guy. And we see it. In the final page, Saul is also being beaten. What? Saul. Saul is bloodied up, he's bruised, beaten, battered, and Sommers doesn't have a damn scratch on him. So, 2 new abilities for Sommers as well. Pretty obvious abilities, but one, we see vines and thorns everywhere because he does have the Ibe no Mi, the Thorn no Mi. And we also see that he traded in his sword, which mind you, he did have like this sword with a thorny guard handle thing. He traded that in for a spiked thorny club. And that club is massive, by the way. That club is bigger than Saul. If you look at the panel. Yeah. They're crazy, man. The God Knights, they're no joke. I think one of the most insane things for me, and I've seen people not coping, but having rationalities for this. But Saul, while he's beaten, we see that Chopper and Robin are inside of his beard still. And it's shocking to me, at least, that Robin and Chopper did not try to help Saul. For Robin, people are saying, oh, Robin is traumatized. She lost Saul once. She's going to lose him again. so she doesn't want to do anything. She's paralyzed by fear. And I'm like, okay, that could be fine. Right? I would like to hope that Robin would do something, but that's just me. But for Chopper, though, like, Chopper didn't do anything, though. Like, Chopper didn't help Saul in this battle? Oh, man. Yeah, I get it, though. They do have a more important mission given to them by Saul. He says, hey, Robin, Chopper, I'm leaving the kids in your care. Don't leave right now. So that's fine. But I'm just imagining that Saul's been fighting Sommers for a good minute, and Robin and Chopper were just watching. Personally, I would have loved to have seen how Robin and Chopper would have fared against St. Sommers. But if Gunko has any indication as to how strong the Holy Knights are base level, then maybe it's for the best that Robin and Chopper hid inside Saul's beard the entire time. So the God Knights, they're just different, right? They are built different. They're looking really good in this chapter. They're winning on every front, not even touched, by the way. Gunko didn't get touched by the Straw Hats, minus Usopp, but she wanted that, so that's a little bit different, right? But Killingham, Sommers, not a single scratch on their body. Really impressive. But I do want to reel it back a little bit, because I still want to see how the monster trio, Loki and Scopper, would fare against these guys. And I'm not trying to underplay the Straw Hats by any means, right? I mean, Nami, Usopp, Jinbei, they're still heavy hitters, mind you. But the monster trio are on a different level. Put Luffy here. Put Sanji here. Zoro here. Scopper, Loki. I mean, even Jinbei, if he was really trying, right? How would they do? I think that's kind of what I go back to. And also, how well will haki work against these guys, right? Because they are still just devil fruit users, but of course they have like regeneration, and then they might have something more. So I really would love to just see a genuine high tier matchup before I draw any conclusions. But based off of this chapter alone, forgetting the monster trio and everybody else, they're looking fire. There's no way around it. They are just looking pretty damn good. So, Sommers ends off the chapter by saying schools, library, a place to learn and read and all this piece. Harold, what are you doing? This is the land of warriors. You guys are supposed to be our mercenaries. What is this all about? King Harold, you bastard, you really screwed up here. And we gotta start asking, man, but what the hell was King Harold up to? Harold is such a weird guy because so far we've seen so many, I wouldn't say conflicting things, but it's just been odd with King Harold, right? We first got to Elbaph. We learned that he was a great and peaceful king. He tore his horns off because he wanted to show how much he loved peace. And then we go over to his portrait and he's over here mean mugging. And then we got the chapter where, Sommers was talking about visiting Harold's grave as if they're old pals. And it's like, okay, like he was in bed with the world government. Maybe he's not a good and benevolent king. And then we get to this chapter and Sommers is mad at what King Harold did in his final days. And it's like, okay, so King Harold is good? It seems like, if I had to guess, based off of what we have seen thus far, it looks like King Harold was telling the world government one thing, but in reality, he was doing another thing. He had Elbaph's best interests at heart the entire time. That is what it seemed like to me. And, whenever the WG showed up, whenever the God Knight showed up, King Harold simply smiled, waved, and did whatever they wanted. But the minute they left, King Harold went back towards his peaceful Elbaph route, and then he built the schools, the libraries, and all that good stuff. And I just honestly cannot wait for the King Harold backstory to get some clarity on what this man was all about, because he has so many people, so many noteworthy characters in his storyline. I mean, we got the God Knights with Shamrock and Sommers. We have Loki and Hardin and their moms. And then we have potentially Roxy Zebek because he came to the island. Maybe even Gold Roger and Shanks because they've been here before. And then we freaking have Scopper. We have Saul. We have Mother Carmel. Like, there's just so many people tied to Elbaph. And King Harold is in the midst of it all. He literally is. So, yeah, there's a lot of things here, man. And I just would love to hear what you guys have to say about this chapter. How do you feel about the God Knight's portrayal? How do you feel about King Harold? What do you think the outcome of Elbaph will be? And also, when the heck will the monster trio, Luffy, Loki, and Scopper make their move? If I had to guess, I'd say that next chapter, we're going to get Scopper. I think Sommers is going to give his speech, and then by the end of it, Scopper is going to show up. Because they just kidnapped his kid. All right, like Colin was flying off and away. So I think that Scopper is going to go to him. He's going to go to wherever he lands, and he's going to put in some work. Or at least that's what I'm hoping. But yes, again, thank you guys so much for spending your time here. Thank you so much for watching this video until the very end. I really freaking appreciate it. If you have the time, I also have 2 side channels as well. I got the Syvduck channel over here on YouTube and over on Twitch. I stream there every other day and I upload highlights onto YouTube. And I also have the Somnus Reacts channel where I do anime reactions there. I do One Piece, I do Black Butler, and any other anime that is trendy that season that I enjoy. But yeah, with that being said, make sure to leave those comments again down below because I will be revisiting the comment section pretty soon and reading through them all. Well, not all of them, but you know, the top like 20, 30 or so, and making a video out of it. So if you want your comment read, make sure to drop it down below. And yeah, I'll catch you all later. Signing out.